Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. So, Jim, to kick things off, tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
Well, how I got into it was serendipity, that's for sure. I started off as a forestry major. That was a 5.5-year plan in 2 different colleges, and I dropped out for a little bit. So it took a while for me to get that. And then I was at Western Michigan University for a little bit, stopped out, ended up at University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. And that is, Stevens Point really where I discovered that I love the people side of the world of work. I decided to continue with my major because I didn't want to change my major at that point. But I really loved working with people, and I was involved with student activities, and graduated from there, and I ended up working at Seattle University for about 1.5 years. But really, my love was really when I went to Oregon State University and got my master's in college student services. Most careers at this point in time in people's lives are pretty circuitous. You're running around. And one of the things I did after grad school was actually took a year off and traveled through New Zealand, mostly New Zealand and Australia. But then came to Colby College, got my first professional job in the student services, college student services at Colby College. I was the director of student activities. And one of the things about jobs is you buy a lifestyle. With all jobs and student activities, to move up, you really had to move out. I had to move away from Colby to move to a bigger student activities position. And so I decided to get married. So that was a changer, a life changer. And she was pretty embedded into this local community. So I kind of changed gears. I ended up as a guidance counselor, and I was a school counselor at the Lewiston Vocational Center, Lewiston Tech Center, Gardner High School, and Mid-Maine Tech Center. And what I discovered in those moves was that I just loved the career stuff. And so I had this chance to really develop the advising and career center at the community college, and that was just great. I was able to dive in and really do more of the career stuff that I wanted to do. And while I was there, I actually started Peak Careers Consulting, and I was part-time with Peak Careers Consulting since 2001. And February 3rd, 2012, I decided to take the leap and go full-time into Peak Careers Consulting, and that's really what I wanted to do. And it really builds on my passion for helping people with their career development and helping them figure out what they would love to do. So most of my business is actually helping career counselors and coaches and advisors improve their skills. And I also do individual career coaching. So I've been doing this since February 2012 full-time.
Well, congratulations, because a lot of businesses that people start based on a passion don't work, because actually sometimes people think more about the passion than about actually the business, if you know what I mean. So,
oh yeah.
Whether you're selling cupcakes or counseling people on their careers, there's still the need to do sales and manage finances and all that. So to have a business for 7 years as you have is an accomplishment.
Yeah, I know that, and I feel it, and when you have your own business like this, I actually did more career work when I was at the community college than I do with my own business because I have the accounting and the record keeping and the marketing and PR and all the other good stuff that goes with it. So it's a tough road, but I love it. I would never go back.
Oh, that's good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I've been in business now for almost 30 years. It's hard for me to
Wow.
believe. And, people sometimes say, oh, yeah, it must be so easy now. You've been doing it for so long. And it's like, no, actually, it never gets easy. I feel like I can never take my foot off the gas, like
It's
I
true.
just have this constant fear that if I stop learning or stop networking or stop doing any of those things that I do, that, the bottom's going to fall out. So it, it, it is something I can't imagine not doing, but it never gets easy.
Mm.
So, Jim, if
Abs-
you had it to do all over again, is there anything that you would do differently?
Not a thing. I feel like each move I learned something. Each move made me better. Each thing that happened in my life really gave me the context that I have today. And I really have no regrets. And I encourage when I'm coaching clients, you can't have you can't have regrets. You can't go back and live in that world. You really need to look forward. And so I've really tried very hard to just say, it is what it is, and just what am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do today? And where do I want to be, in the future? So no regrets.
I love that attitude. That's awesome. That's really great. Thank you for sharing that. You kind of made my day. You got to
All
always be
right.
looking forward. You got to be looking ahead.
Yeah. Well, you can't change the past. It would have been better if I had done more student activities. You are who you are because of all of these life events, and it's wasted effort and energy to look back and regret stuff.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's for sure. I feel like you are who you are based on the things that you've done and the people you've met too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. The famous "you're the average of the six people that you hang around with," I think is
Funny
really a
you say
truth.
that. I quoted that in the last podcast that I recorded.
Oh, you
John Lee
did?
John Lee Dumas talks a lot about that. He of course is the host of the podcast Entrepreneurs on Fire, which I
Yep,
love to listen
I
to.
listened to that. Yeah, I do. I listen to JD too.
Yeah. So, Jim, can you give me an example of how PR and social media have helped to advance you personally, your business, or a client?
Well, in my undergrad and my master's, I actually had business minors, so I've kind of always been interested in this PR or business. I never thought I'd own my own business ever, ever, ever. Really, until just the last, 2001 was really when I started thinking about it. But I never really thought I would. But business has always been a sort of a piece of it. And what I love about PR is it feeds my creativity. I love to be creative. I love to try new things out, and I feel like PR is so much about trying things out. You can't just go, "Oh, this is the one thing I'm gonna do, and I'll be successful." It's just like you got to try new things. You can't be afraid of maybe trying some new social media or new apps, possibly, of what's going to help you, or how do you reach out, or maybe new audiences to reach. So PR has sort of fed my creativity, and that's the thing I really do. I'm never an early adopter in these changes, but I do like to try new things. Um, and I would say the other piece of that learning is, I'm always in this PR world, and even in social media, you really got to be learning something new all the time. So I read a lot. I read books. I read blogs. I watch videos to learn and continue to learn. And the second part of your question there is, so on social media, as I was thinking about, social media really feeds that social side. In the Myers-Briggs world, I'm an ENFP, and I think you might be one of those as
I
well?
think I'm ENTJ actually.
Oh, you are, Ian? Okay, you got that.
Definitely
That's we.
E though. Definitely E.
Yeah. And the social media piece really does feed my social side. One of the biggest things that I struggled with when I left the community college was I work from home. I mean, there's just nobody here. I take a coffee break, it's with me, and so social media has really allowed me to stretch myself, and it really feeds my social side. And it's all, for me, it's all about connections. This whole world of PR and social media and advancing your career, it's all personal. I tell people that all the time. It's one person at a time, whether it's face to face or whether it's live. I mean, PR, public relations. It's about relations. It's about relationships, and I think that's more true now than it ever was. That it's all about relationships, and you really have to develop those relationships. And it's not like you can just buy an ad and expect people to show up.
You're just so reinforcing everything that I talk about every day. So thank you,
Yeah.
Jim. I believe that so much. And, yeah, one relationship at a time, and that we need to build relationships both in person and online. You can't do one or the other. We've got to do both.
Yeah, I mean, it's really about building relationships, and it's no different than, friends and, my relationship with my wife. I mean, it's a matter of it's not like you can just do it and then it ends. You've got to build those. If you want to keep a relationship going, you've got to work at it. And the beauty of social media is it allows you to do that 24/7. I mean, not that I stay up awake 24 hours a day, but I mean,
Mhm.
I think about LinkedIn. My analogy with LinkedIn, for example, is LinkedIn was created to take that once a year professional conference that you and I meet at, and then we might see each other somewhere else, and then the next year we see each other again. LinkedIn took that professional relationship and moved it to 24/7. And so now I can stay in touch with people at a very different level than you could before without social media. So social media's got a role. I mean, I don't want to be chasing social media all at 24/7. I don't want to be chasing, every new, Facebook, TikTok, and everything else that's coming out. But I've got my place in social media, and I really work hard to keep those relationships going, because that's really what it's all about.
Well, I'm glad that you're advocating for social media, but I hope also that when you're working with people who are looking to make a job change, that you encourage them to write thank you notes and send them in the mail too, because I'm a big advocate of that.
Oh, that's a huge one. That's my Jimmy Fallon. Every Friday, Jimmy Fallon writes thank you notes on his show, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start doing that. So I got a pile of thank you notes, and I try to. I can't honestly say I do it every Friday, but I think about it every week, and I do send out thank you notes, and I think that's so important. It's personal. It's one at a time. Does an email thank you work? It does, but I know. If you could see my office, I've got a wall of thank you notes. I don't throw them away, but my emails get deleted eventually. But my thank you notes, they mean something to me. And so that's what you're trying to do, is establish those relationships and make an impact. So I agree totally.
Yeah, I feel like it's a way for job seekers to differentiate themselves, because if I'm interviewing someone and they send me an email, thank you, I'm like, meh, they don't really make an impression on me. But as you said, if I get a note in the mail in an envelope with a stamp on it, that really it differentiates a candidate for me. So,
And
I,
it's a matter, it takes a little more time to do that, right? I mean, and life is all about time. Life is all about being present. And when you can take the time out of it, everybody's busy. You take the time out of your busy day, you stop and you write a thank you note that's thoughtful. Like you said, you seal it, you put a stamp on it, you get it to the post office. That means a lot more than just shooting off an email. Absolutely.
and you mentioned that you have a stack of notes on your desk. Well, I feel that if you kind of always have note cards, envelopes, stamps, return address labels. If you have all the materials like at the ready, it just makes it so much easier to send a note. Whereas if people hardly ever do it, you have to like pull the supplies together. So if you make it a habit, it's kind of like, if you intend to exercise in the morning, if you have your exercise clothes all ready to go, it's harder not to go to the gym. You just wake up and put those exercise clothes and get out the door.
That's right. That's right. I mean, it's just a matter of making it a habit when you can. And again, I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not doing it. I don't do it every day. I don't do it every single week, but it's on my mind and I think about it. And when I try to be grateful for the people that are around me because they make me who I am. And so
Right.
I think it's worth taking that time.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of the obstacles to success in your career so far, and how have you overcome them, Jim?
I would say that many of the obstacles, for me, it's about my audience. The bulk of my audience is nationwide. And so for me, it's about building up an email list. And so I've always known for years that I just try to capture emails. And it's hard to do. That's a slow, painful process, and I always think it's going to go faster. But what I've had to learn is it really is one person at a time. I mean, people sign up for it, and I've tried to develop it. Lots of ways to develop it is still a matter of personal. I mean, for me, it's get out to conferences and meet people and do presentations. And that's really what the obstacles are. And there's no shortcut to that. You can't go for quantity and just say, I'm just going to get hundreds of people. You really got to go for quality contacts to develop it. So people know me, but they've got to be people that are in my wheelhouse, people that are looking for the career content that I'm sharing, either online or face to face or through some of the seminars I do or the classes that I do. So it's a lot about getting out there and then trying to find new audiences, So I mean, I'm presenting next month down in Boston at a career transitions conference. I've never presented there before, but I had a chance to do that. I'm looking at going to Nova Scotia Career Development Association. So you can't just rely on what you did last year. So that, when I look at my obstacles, it's easy to go, okay, I did this and it kind of worked. I did this, I kind of worked. Well, then there's a point where it kind of doesn't work anymore, or you flatline. And for me, it was after like 3 years of being full-time with Peak Careers, I kind of hit a wall, and I really decided to hire a business coach, and I hired a coach who really helped me kind of get unstuck, kind of out of that, doing it the same. It's so easy to do this, do the same things over and over and over. And I needed a coach to help move me. And it's no different than my clients. That's one of the roles that I play, and that is I help clients get out of that rut, try something new, look at the situation in a different way. So, that's probably my biggest obstacle, is just always being, challenging myself, but also being willing to, ask for some help and kind of go, hey, how do I get out of this rut? That's probably my biggest obstacles.
Well, I think having a coach or a career counselor or even a personal trainer, all these things are good to hold our feet to the fire, to, as I said, keep trying new things, but also stick with the things that are working. So sounds like you've got a nice balance. So we're going to continue our conversation with Jim shortly, but I first wanted to share some exciting news with you about how you can connect with me about the podcast. We've created the PR Maven podcast listener line, and you can now call 207-620-9075 to get in touch with me and ask me questions, share feedback or ideas for the podcast, including guests you'd like to hear on the show. I'd love to hear from you, and right now we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more from Jim in just a moment. This podcast is all about growing your network in order to strengthen your brand. In my 30-plus year marketing and PR career, I have seen many organizations waste their precious time and money on marketing because they're trying to obtain success without any strategy to achieve their goals. So many organizations and companies suffer from what I call the shiny object syndrome, trying every new fad that comes down the pike. That's why I created the Marshall Plan 15 years ago. We have done over 100 of these plans for clients, helping them to get out of their day-to-day routine to identify their goals, solidify their brand story, focus in on their ideal customer avatar, analyze their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and create a realistic budget and measurement dashboard. We create the Marshall Plan collaboratively with our clients over the course of 3 months. We have a 65-step process to create a highly customized, actionable plan. And it's not like we come in and say, we are the consultants from away and we know everything. Instead, we come in and say, let's sit down at the table with your leadership team and we'll bring our expertise in what's working in PR and marketing. And our client team brings their knowledge of what's working in their organization. And together, we come up with a really amazing plan. For many, it's been a transformative process. I have watched how teams have come together and their faces light up because they have such a sense of accomplishment and they're so excited about the future of their organization. We help our client figure out the best way to implement the plan, sometimes using people within their organization and sometimes with our help. We would love to chat with you about how you can expand your network and achieve your marketing goals with a Marshall Plan. Go to marshallpr.com/MarshallPlan to learn more about the process, or better yet, send me an email at nancy@prmaven.com and we'll set up a time to talk and get started. And now back to our conversation. Now it's time for our book and Things to Do pad giveaway. To win a copy of my book, PR Works, and one of our coveted PR Maven Nation Things to Do Today pads, for those of us who are a little obsessive about checklists like I am. I don't know if you are, Jim, but I love checking things off the list.
Oh, yeah. I have your pad that you give out at various conferences and stuff. So I still use that.
That's awesome. And you might be getting another one in the mail as a result of being my guest, so stay tuned. So yeah, for PR Maven Nation listening in, if you go to prmaven.com/giveaway, you could be our next winner of a copy of my book, and I'll even autograph it, and one of our pads. So we're going to go to another question now with Jim about what he calls value added in the workplace. Jim, essentially you have a value added statement. Why don't you talk a little bit the essential things you want everyone to know about you in the workplace?
Yeah, I mean, the world of work has changed. And I think, when I see people's first draft of their resumes, it really becomes evident. People's old school resumes used to be a list of responsibilities. I was the director of student activities. I did this. I was a school counselor, and there's a list of things that I did and I was responsible for. The focus and the mindset change that has to happen in the world of work that we live in today is developing your value added statement. What is the value that you actually add to the marketplace? Because that value, when you can articulate that value is transportable. So you could be working at a specific company, but the skill set that you bring and the value that you bring to that company could also go to another company, and actually in most cases could go to another industry. But the hard part for clients is trying to identify and develop their value added statement. So I call that's sort of the 5 or 6 essential things you want everyone to know about you. And you really want to think about it. And it should mostly be skills, but sometimes one of those essential things is I want to do something that is in higher ed, like one of some of my past jobs. So that might be one of the things that you want everyone to know about you, so that when you get your message going, the value that you bring to the marketplace needs to be really clear, and where you hope to go. So I always just call it the 5 or 6 essential things you want everyone to know. And that's your value added statement. And that's hard to package up by yourself. Some people can do it with a little bit of help. That's really where I spend the bulk of my time when I'm working with clients. Being able to say, what is it I want to do? I really want to help people find their career passions. I really want to help people find a job that allows them to use the skills that they want. Those, so my passion is really being able to listen to people, and my skill set is to be able to help people make those moves. But one of my 5 or 6 essential things is really to help career counselors and career coaches improve their skills. So that is the messaging that I want to see. And so you got to get that value added statement needs to be out when you're talking to people. It needs to be out in informational interviews. It needs to be on your resume. It needs to be on your LinkedIn profile. It needs to be everywhere, and it needs to be consistent. So that's really where I spend the bulk of my time working with clients.
Well, do you also help people discover whether they're better suited as entrepreneurs rather than employees? Because I know, I worked for several other people before I actually started my own business, but I was glad that I discovered when I was still in my 30s that I was better suited as an entrepreneur rather than as an employee. Is that part of your process too?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I never know the end result. And for me, as a career coach, I'm helping people articulate that value and then begin this process of exploring what is out there. Where are the places out there that need my value? And so it really comes to, so much of this is embedded in relationships and networks, because once you have that value added statement formulated, and it's not an elevator pitch, something that you memorize. It's really 5 or 6 essential things. And sometimes I'm going to spend 15 minutes talking about it. Sometimes I'm going to spend a few minutes. But you want to go talk to people that you know, like, and trust, and ask them, what else is out there? And that's where you're going to discover, oh, you know what? People keep saying, hey, you should have your own business, or people keep saying, hey, this is a great direction for you, or have you ever thought about this? That comes from getting your value added statement packaged up, and then the process is really to go out and talk to people, explore, and look at options, because I really want people to look at options. It's what I call intentional serendipity. People need to be intentional, take action, try something new, explore new places, talk to new people, take some kind of action, but then be open to discovering things by accident. That's often where people will find the new job opportunity or discover that entrepreneurship is really the best route.
It's interesting because I don't feel like I was given any of this kind of advice or counsel when I was in high school or college. I mean, I think my dad actually helped me figure out that public relations was a good career choice for me, but nobody really talked to me about, figuring out my value. It was more like, oh yeah, you just got to get a good job. And there was an emphasis on a good job, and that was kind of like the term that was used for every path. And I wish somebody had talked to me like what you do with your clients, or the way you actually coach the coaches. Isn't that right?
Well, I do both. I mean, I have career clients that I have, but then I'm also helping coaches, work, improve their skills as well. But, it never used to be that way. I mean, I remember at college, the goal was just to get a resume out and send it to 200 places.
Yeah, right.
And and that was kind of it, and of course you use your network, but that's why so many people struggled right now these days trying to find work, is that they don't realize the world of work is a different place. It's really about value. People need to view themselves as consultants. I don't care where you work. You need to view yourself as a consultant and go into work every day and go, what's the value that I bring to this company on this day, and how can I make it better? Because that value is transportable. So one, you're going to make yourself an in-house consultant and improve your stature within your company. But by articulating your value and being clear about your value and what are the 5 or 6 essential things you want everyone to know, your value is also in other companies or possibly other industries, right? I mean, this is really where people get stuck. It's kind of like, I'm a teacher, that's all I've ever done, that's all I can ever do. No, I mean, those skills are training skills. Those skills are working with people skills. Those are human development skills. There's a lot of transportable skills. You've got to look at yourself as a consultant. And that's the difference in the world of work.
And how about differentiation? I feel like that's part of your platform also, is helping people to differentiate themselves.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing worse than when you see the resume that says, I'm a team player, I work well independently,
Yeah, right.
and
I love people.
I love people, and it's just because it says nothing.
Yeah.
Now, when I say I love people, for me, it's really about, well, what I say is I help career service providers improve their skills so the greatest number of people receive quality career services. Now, that I could have said I like helping people. I like training people. But that doesn't say much. That's how you differentiate yourself. You really got to get in there and say, what really excites me? And I do that. I use story. I ask people to tell me stories of accomplishments, something they're proud of. And usually when they're talking about it, these passions show up. They don't even know it's there, I also do card sorts, where I like to use skills card sorts. It's like a deck of cards, and they place these cards out on the table. And what you do is you sort it 3 times, 3 different ways. And what emerges is sort of on the table right in front of the students or the clients is the skills and the groupings of skills that they like to use. That's when you can differentiate yourself. What does that pile mean? And then they start talking, and that's really where it comes out. But I don't like just to help people. I help career service providers improve their skills so the greatest number of people receive quality career services. Now, that's a statement you can hang your hat on. Now, that means a lot. There's a lot buried in that. But that's a conversation you can have that differentiates yourself.
Yeah, well, I think it's important that people figure out what differentiates them, and that they feel good about themselves on the job too. I've always said, I remember early on in my career when I was asked to work in the mailroom, for example, and I hated working in the mailroom. I was miserable. The high point of my day was when the UPS man came and I was able to talk to the UPS man. But other than that, it was not fulfilled. I was not good at the rote kind of skills that you need to have to sort through mail. And I was doing bulk mailings, and oh my gosh. So that experience taught me that, as an employer now, I need to help people figure out what is their strong suit and make sure that most of their job is within their strongest suit. I mean, of course, people end up having to do a few things they might not like. They might not like doing time slips or expense reports or things like that. But for the most part, I think in my organization, I have people in the right seats, so to speak. And I feel like if they're happy in their job, then they're going to provide great service to our clients.
But you have to do those jobs that you don't like to understand that there's probably the opposite of that is what you really want to do.
Yeah.
So people, and it's kind of why part of my philosophy is this intentional serendipity. People need to get out there and take action. They need to go out when possible and work in the field that they're looking at. I was making a decision on forestry as an 18-year-old. I love the outdoors, but I had no clue about the day-to-day of what a forester did, not zero. And that's how most people are making decisions. And where you really want to do is you want to try stuff and go, boy, I didn't really like that. Think about the value, think about the stuff you didn't like. Sometimes the opposite is really what gets you going. But then if I work for you, I got to come to you and say, Nancy, what I love to do is this. And what I'm spending most of my time on is this. And that's why understanding your own value is so important. And then being able to share that.
I would like my people to say that because, I know that if they really love what they're doing, they're going to do a good job, and that will be reflected in the results they generate. So,
absolutely.
Jim, in your line of work, is there a resource such as a book, a website, or an app that you have found to be helpful, and why is that?
Oh, well, in my field, I would say that the greatest resource is probably LinkedIn. For most people, no, not every industry is on LinkedIn, but most are. I mean, many of them are, but not every field, every person that I work with needs to be. But the bulk of the people that I work with and coach, and the bulk of where I spend my time, LinkedIn is the largest career database in the world. And I don't think of it as a social media. I mean, it does have a social media piece to it, but for me, it's the largest career database in the world. You create your own online presence, and this is a place where you can create your online presence. Everybody has an online presence, but you're not in charge of all of it. So LinkedIn allows you to do that. That's a place I can articulate my value. It's a place I can connect with people, but I use it also as a way when I'm working with clients to discover new career pathways. So you can use LinkedIn and look at people who are doing work that you would love to do in the next 5 years or something. And you can look at their pathway. How did they get there? What are the skills that are required? And what are the different companies and pathways that you can get to it? And then you can also just find jobs. So they have a whole job function in there. But for me, it's all about that network and discovering new ways to get to where you want to go. So, I mean, you could look at people who graduated from the same college you did and they use the same major and look and see where the different pathways have led those people. That's very, very powerful.
I love LinkedIn too. I mean, from the perspective of personal branding and, again, differentiating yourself, I love sharing, articles and also just connecting with people. So even just today, I shared something about, I'm on Forbes.com as one of their experts in the marketing and PR industry. So I shared an article that I'm featured in, and then I'll get comments and start conversations. So yeah, LinkedIn for me is just a gold mine. And I mean, it's fun too. I like connecting with people on LinkedIn.
And I would also say that you just need to read. I mean, I read books all the time. If you go to my website, I actually I have two sort of blog areas. One is my career blogs, but one is my books that I've read. And so when I read a book, I usually just put up a little summary of that book. I think you've got to get these different perspectives in order to be successful. So I mean, I'm a pretty eclectic reader, but I'm trying to read books that relate to my field. But I'm also reading magazines, I'm reading articles, and I just think that there's no substitute for that continued learning that gives you those different perspectives. I don't care what job you're in. So I just think that resource, LinkedIn, is great, but reading and either a book or magazine, article, journals is so important.
I agree. And I actually have become a follower of a PR person whose name is Ginny Dietrich. And she does a blog called Spin Sucks, actually. And she said that if she's doing an interview with a candidate and asks, what book are you reading? And if the person responds that they don't have time for reading or they don't read, they're immediately out. Like, she figures if somebody is not a reader, they will not have a place in her organization. And I kind of agree with that. I also feel like people who don't read aren't really as interesting to talk to as people who read. I mean, I think people who read, I mean, it just shows that you have a curious mind, and you're as you said, you're a continuous learner, and you're thinking deep thoughts. So I'm a big
Well,
advocate of
and you
reading too.
challenge, yeah, you challenge yourself. I mean, you want to hear these different perspectives. I mean, that's, you know, there's nothing wrong with different perspectives. I mean, I don't have to agree with everybody, but sometimes it's great to have that sort of just that change of focus, that and try to understand where people are coming from. And then once in a while, you kind of go like, wow, that's actually not a bad idea. How could I incorporate that idea into career coaching, for example, or whatever? So it's reading and learn. I mean, we are lifelong learners now, and the world changes so fast that you really I believe you have to be reading. You have to be learning all the time.
I agree. I agree. So what would be your one piece of advice for someone starting out in their career other than to be reading? What is another piece of advice?
Oh, that's not fair. One piece of advice. So, but for me, as people are looking at their career, one is look back at themes in your life. What were the themes? What were the things that kind of kept you going? I mean, I look back at my job, my various jobs that I've done over the years, and working in higher ed, and even student activities, but school counseling. For me, the theme is really human development, right? I mean, so they were very different. There were many of these places that I went were different industries in very different jobs. But the themes, that's really what you want to look back. And sometimes what you need is you just need to ask for some advice. And that's where I think a coach can come in, or just friends. I mean, just ask people, because it's hard to see yourself, what your true strengths are. I guess the final one piece of advice, which is turning into three, is look at networking as relationship building. Don't look at networking as a one-way relationship. It's really relationship building, and that's the power of moving yourself forward in your own career development, is helping other people, but also they'll help you in moving forward. So relationship building is huge.
I agree, and I would advocate for both in person and online. So as you said, when you meet a new person, to make an effort to connect with them on LinkedIn and keep the relationship going.
Yes.
What is one parting thought you would like to share with our audience, Jim?
Focus on your value-added statement, the 5 or 6 essential things you want everyone to know. Play with that, mull it around, try to flush that thing out. And just be thoughtful about what is it that you really want to be doing, and where do you want to be going, and how do you articulate that? And then embrace intentional serendipity. Get out there, take action, and then be open to discovering things by accident.
I like that very much. Intentional serendipity. That's a hashtag right there. So my final question, Jim, is to help PR Maven Nation connect with you. What are some of the best ways our listeners can get in touch with you? Obviously, LinkedIn.
Yes, on LinkedIn. You can find me on Peak Careers for sure. You can find me, or look up Jim Peacock. Either way. Okay,
so Peak Careers would be PEAK Careers.
And on LinkedIn, yeah, and that's pretty much that's the same. Peak Careers, all one word, is how you'll find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. My website is actually peak-careers.com. So if you will go to my website, that's where a lot of this more information is about what I do and my philosophy. But that's PEAK-careers.com. But any of those places is a great place to connect, and I'd love to do that with anyone.
Well, thank you. This has been really a pleasure. I've really enjoyed chatting with you today. I've always enjoyed seeing you at conferences, and we ran into each other on an airplane recently. I forget, were we coming back from New York or something?
I think it was the Midwest, if I remember right.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe it was Chicago. Yeah.
Chicago. I think it was Chicago.
Yeah. Okay. We were on the, yeah. I don't remember exactly what I was doing in Chicago, but probably I belonged to a network of agencies, and I was probably at one of my agency network meetings.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Jim, so thank you for joining us. And for everyone in PR Maven Nation, I'm sure you enjoyed hearing from Jim Peacock as well. And I hope everybody has a great day. That's it for this week's episode. I'd like to thank you for listening. And if you feel that you've gotten value out of today's conversation, consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever app you're using to tune in. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should do so. I release a new episode each week, and subscribing will make sure you get an alert when there's a new episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation by going to prmaven.com/nation and clicking join. It's free, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you have an Alexa-enabled device, be sure to add the PR Maven Marketing Minute to your daily flash briefing menu. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.